Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So Halle Berry has taken her ex-husband to court. Her ex-husband is a white man. His name is Gabriel Aubrey. They share a biracial daughter. Halle Berry accuses her ex-husband of trying to make their biracial daughter look more European and less black. To be more specific, she says that her ex-husband changed the texture and color of their daughter's hair to blonde in order to make her look more white and less black. And even worse than that, Halle Berry says that her ex-husband referred to Halle Berry as a nigger. And it wasn't just a question of he said, she said. She presented a personal note that this man allegedly wrote referring to Halle Berry as a nigger, referring to the mother of his daughter as a nigger, referring to the woman that he was married to as a nigger. Now, the judge ruled that neither parent could alter the daughter's hair from its natural state. The judge also made comments about the ex-husband referring to Halle Berry as a nigger. He said the judge said that was totally unacceptable. The judge said that affects the very core and being of the biracial daughter. And Halle Berry voiced concern about the physical and psychological damage that her ex-husband's behavior could have on the daughter. So I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about this. The first point that I want to make is this. Often you will hear these people on YouTube and elsewhere presenting this idea that somehow the white man is a knight in shining armor here to rescue the black woman from her relationships problems with the black man. They will present this white man as some kind of savior for black women, as if being in a relationship or marriage with a white man is going to solve all the issues that black women have to deal with in terms of relationships. It's going to rescue the black woman from the black man, from the so-called Pookie and Ray Ray, as they like to refer to black men as. But here we have an example proving that completely false. An example proving that the white man is not some knight in shining armor to rescue the black woman. So that's the first point that I want to make. The second point that I have to make is this. Often people will assume that because a white person is in a relationship with a black person, or because a white person has a biracial child with a black person, that somehow that absolves them of racism. And here we have a prime example of how that is completely false. Here we have a man who is married to a black woman, a man who has a biracial child with a black woman. But yet and still, this man has no problem referring to his wife, his ex-wife, as a nigger, even though he has a biracial child with this woman. He still views black people as niggers. Even though he has a biracial child, he still is ashamed of her heritage, still ashamed that she has African or black blood within her. So he's doing everything that he can to try to make her appear less black. So it's obvious and plain to see for the world that having a biracial child or being involved in an interracial relationship does not absolve one of racism. We've seen examples before, and I've talked about this before. There's an article on Essence about a white man who was married to a black woman who had racial fetishes, a man who enjoyed calling black women and black people the N-word, but yet and still he was in a relationship with a black woman. He loved to use racial slurs and things like that in order to get off, in order to fulfill sexual fantasies and things of that nature. So, again, being in a relationship with a black person does not absolve somebody of racism. And we've seen examples of this throughout history. We've seen examples of staunch segregationists who have no problem laying down with black women while they oppress black people. We've seen this during slavery times, where the slave master had no problem laying down with and raping black women while oppressing black people as a collective. So again, being in a relationship with a black person or having a child with a black person does not absolve one of racism. And I think that that is something a lot of ignorant black people just don't seem to understand. And this is another reminder of the challenges of raising biracial children. The challenges of it. Because you have two different cultures. You have black culture and you have white culture or Western culture. And often there's conflict. This man obviously doesn't have much respect for African people and African culture because he wants his daughter to look more white. He basically wants his daughter to pass as white. So he's doing everything that he can to alter her appearance. And think about the psychological damage that that has on a child, where her father is trying to suppress part of her identity. What kind of message does that send to that daughter? All that does is reinforce the idea that there's something wrong with her blackness, that there's something wrong with who she is, that there's something wrong with her hair, that it has to be altered, it has to be changed, it has to be straightened, it has to be blonde in order to be beautiful, it has to look white in order to be beautiful. Imagine just the psychological damage of that. And we see this psychological damage not just in these types of situations. We see it in the black community where people are told that they have bad hair if the hair looks more African and less European. It's called nappy if it resembles African hair. And it's called good if it resembles European hair. We hear this all the time. And we see the manifestations of that self-hatred when we see our sisters wearing weaves, when we see our sisters wearing wigs, when we see our sisters putting all kinds of chemicals in their hair to alter the state of their hair to look more and more European. We see that. And that self-hatred is taught to children when they read these fables about, these fairy tales about these white princesses, and they're given these Barbie dolls that teach them that there's something beautiful about straight hair and that there's something ugly about black hair. We see a manifestation of this self-hatred when we have seen tests that were done in the 50s where children are presented with a black doll and a white doll, and they're asked which one is the beautiful doll, and they point to the white doll. When they're asked which one is the ugly doll, they point to the black doll. And a few years ago, someone tried to redo that test, represent the same test to children in this modern age, and they received the same type of results. You had black children pointing to the black doll as the ugly doll, and black children pointing to the white doll as the beautiful doll. And that type of self-hatred is still with us today. And the way that this man is trying to raise his biracial daughter helps further that kind of self-hatred.